Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive with us.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
As always, we are going to unpack some dense material.
We are.
And today's topic is something I think we all think about a lot,
Yeah.
fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this excerpt that we have, Chasing the Feeling, Spirituality and Religion, it's got me thinking, maybe the key to lasting fulfillment, it's not about all those achievements.
Right.
The external stuff, maybe it's something a little deeper, something internal.
Yeah, and that's actually a question that has fascinated both spiritual and religious traditions for centuries.
Okay.
They suggest that true fulfillment, it comes from cultivating internal experiences and connecting to something larger than ourselves.
Okay, so you're talking about like transcendence.
Exactly,
Okay.
transcendence.
I've heard the word, I think I have a vague idea of what it means, but to be
Yeah.
honest with you, I'm not really sure I could define it.
Well, it's basically about rising above the everyday material world
Okay.
and experiencing a connection to something greater,
Right.
something beyond our physical senses.
So if I'm constantly chasing that next promotion or, obsessing over material things,
Right.
I'm probably not really tapping into transcendence, then am I?
Not quite.
Okay.
The excerpt talks about practices like meditation, prayer, and fasting
Yeah.
as ways to achieve transcendence.
Good.
And they all have a common thread,
Okay.
which is shifting your focus inward and connecting to something bigger than yourself.
So, I've tried meditation, I've dabbled,
Yeah.
and I have to be honest with you, I really struggle to quiet my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the real benefit beyond just, trying to feel calmer?
Well, think of it this way. When you meditate, you're training your mind to let go of all that constant chatter
Right.
and just focus on the present moment.
Okay.
This can lead to a sense of clarity, peace, even a deeper connection to yourself and the world around you.
No.
Some even experience a feeling of oneness or unity with the universe
Right.
through meditation.
Okay, that makes sense. And prayer, is that sort of along the same lines, like connecting to something bigger?
Exactly. Prayer is about communicating with a higher power.
Right.
Whether you call that God, the universe, something else entirely. It can bring about feelings of purpose, reassurance, a sense of belonging,
Huh.
all of which can contribute to a deeper, more profound sense of fulfillment.
Okay, that's resonating with me. But fasting, I got to admit, that one seems a little extreme to me.
Sure.
How does denying yourself food lead to fulfillment?
Well, it's not about deprivation.
Right.
It's about shifting your focus away from those physical needs and towards internal growth.
Okay.
By intentionally abstaining from food, you develop discipline, clarity, and even a deeper appreciation for what you have.
Interesting.
It's a way of intentionally stepping away from the material world to cultivate something much deeper within.
So the excerpt suggests that, transcendence through these practices could offer like a more sustainable
Mm-hmm.
and lasting sense of fulfillment than, say, just achieving external success.
That's a key question that the author raises. And they do seem to believe that transcendence can definitely contribute to a deeper and more profound sense of fulfillment.
Okay.
But they also caution against viewing any one path,
Yeah.
including religion, as having all the answers.
So it's like we all need to find our own path to fulfillment.
Exactly. And this leads us to another fascinating concept that's explored in the excerpt, mysticism.
Mysticism. Okay, that sounds a bit, mystical,
Yeah.
like something out of a movie. What is it exactly?
It's about pursuing direct internal experiences of divine or universal truth.
Okay.
It's about having an experience that just blows your mind wide open, something you can't quite explain, but it leaves you feeling profoundly connected to everything.
Wow, that sounds intense.
Yeah.
But how do you even go about having a mystical experience?
There are many paths to mystical experiences, and the excerpt highlights a few.
Okay.
Take Sufi mysticism, for example, within Islam.
Go.
They seek communion with God through practices like love, poetry, dance, and prayer,
Okay.
finding fulfillment in a deep sense of divine presence.
Oh.
So that's one example.
That's beautiful. And what about other traditions?
Well, you have Christian mysticism, where figures like St. John of the Cross
Okay.
describe intense periods of darkness and struggle, what they call the dark night of the soul,
Right.
which ultimately leads to spiritual enlightenment.
So even in the midst of, difficulty,
Yeah,
there can be a path to a profound experience.
that's the idea.
Okay.
And then in Hinduism, there's a school of thought called Advaita Vedanta.
Okay.
And they emphasize realizing that our individual self is not separate from the universe,
Okay.
but actually identical to universal consciousness.
So it's about dissolving those boundaries between, ourselves and everything else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this realization, this experience of oneness, that's where they find ultimate fulfillment.
Wow.
It's about transcending the illusion of separateness and experiencing unity with the universe.
These mystical experiences, they sound so profound, but do they really, redefine what's real?
That's a question that has challenged thinkers for ages.
Right.
Now, the author of our excerpt admits to not having much personal experience with mysticism.
Okay.
And similar to their views on religion, they caution against applying these personal truths universally. But still, it's clear that mystical experiences can completely reshape our understanding of reality.
So mysticism is like opening a door to a whole new dimension of understanding.
Precisely.
Okay.
And speaking of challenging conventional ideas, the excerpt also explores the concept of detachment
Okay.
as a pathway to lasting peace.
Detachment.
Yeah.
But don't we usually want to attach ourselves to things that make us feel good?
Right.
How can letting go lead to fulfillment?
Well, you're right. It seems counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But the idea is that true peace and fulfillment come from releasing our attachment to external desires and outcomes.
Okay.
Instead of constantly chasing after things we think will make us happy,
Right.
we learn to find contentment and joy within ourselves, regardless of our circumstances.
That's about, finding that inner peace amidst all the chaos of life.
And-
I've always struggled with that. So this idea of detachment is really intriguing to me.
It is a powerful concept, and the excerpt highlights some really interesting teachings on detachment from different traditions.
But I'm curious to hear more.
Well, in Buddhism, for example, detachment is a central theme. They believe that suffering arises from attachment to desires.
Okay.
So they use practices like mindfulness and meditation to cultivate a sense of inner peace that isn't dependent on external circumstances.
So it's not about ignoring your desires, but changing your relationship to them?
Exactly. And then you have Stoicism, which also emphasizes detachment.
Okay.
They believe that true fulfillment comes from accepting what's within our control,
Okay.
like our own thoughts and actions, and
Yeah.
letting go of what we can't control, like external events.
So instead of getting stressed about things you can't change, you focus on what you can.
Right.
And you find peace in that.
That's the essence of Stoicism.
Wow.
And then there's also Taoism, which emphasizes flowing with the natural order of the universe, the Tao, and letting go of the need to control or resist life's changes.
Okay.
Instead of clinging to things, you learn to adapt and move with the flow,
Yeah.
finding peace and fulfillment in the present moment.
These are all such different approaches, but they all seem to point towards, the same idea of inner peace.
They do, and this idea of detachment really challenges our typical notions of, chasing feelings.
Right.
If the goal is to stop chasing altogether and find peace in simply being,
Yeah.
how does that change our approach to fulfillment?
That's a great question.
It is.
And it's something we'll dive into further in the next part of our deep dive.
Absolutely.
We'll explore what the author has to say about finding balance and detachment
Yes.
and how these different traditions offer practical ways to cultivate this inner peace.
It's going to be fascinating to unpack these ideas and see how they apply to our lives.
For sure. See you in part 2.
See you then.
Welcome back. Last time we were talking about detachment and how different traditions, like from Buddhism to Stoicism to Taoism, they all emphasize letting go as a path to inner peace.
Yeah.
And it really got me thinking about how this contrasts with, our usual go-getter mentality.
Right.
It's that the world is constantly telling us to chase, external achievements.
Mhm.
But these traditions are saying, hey, maybe that's not the key to true fulfillment.
It is a fascinating contrast, isn't it?
Yeah.
While our culture often equates success with external markers, like wealth or status,
Right.
these spiritual traditions, they suggest that true fulfillment comes from something deeper,
Oh.
something more internal.
It's like they're saying, maybe that promotion or that fancy car won't actually bring you that lasting happiness.
Right.
Maybe true fulfillment comes from cultivating a sense of inner peace
Mhm.
and contentment
Yeah.
that's not dependent on those external things.
Exactly.
It really makes you question your priorities.
It does. And one of the key takeaways from our source material is this idea that external reality might be secondary to internal truth.
Wow.
It's a pretty radical concept when you think about it. If
Yeah.
we're not chasing those external markers of success, then what are we striving for?
Exactly. So what does this inner peace actually look like?
Yeah.
How do we cultivate it?
Well, according to these traditions, the goal is to cultivate a state of being, a sense of inner peace and connection that isn't dependent on external circumstances.
Okay.
It's about finding that sense of contentment and joy that comes from within,
Yeah.
regardless of what's happening around you.
I mean, I've always struggled with, finding peace when things are chaotic. This
Right.
idea of, inner contentment regardless of external circumstances is really intriguing to me.
Mm-hmm.
How do we actually get there?
Yeah.
It can't just be wishful thinking.
Right. It takes effort. And the excerpt talks about practices like meditation, prayer, and detachment as tools that can help us cultivate this inner peace. It's fascinating how these practices, which might seem very different on the surface,
Right.
all seem to point in the same direction.
It's like they're all different paths leading
Yeah.
to the same destination.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder if there's some kind of universal truth underlying these different approaches.
It does make you wonder, like, maybe there's a common human yearning for something that transcends our individual experiences.
Hmm.
And perhaps these spiritual practices are different ways of tapping into that universal desire.
Another thing that struck me from the excerpt was this idea of spiritual experiences
Yeah.
as a potential source of fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
It's like those moments when you feel a sense of awe and wonder,
Right.
like a glimpse into something bigger than yourself,
Exactly.
something that gives your life meaning and purpose.
Yeah.
It's almost like those experiences provide a taste of this deeper fulfillment we've been talking about.
It's a powerful concept, and the excerpt highlights how many spiritual traditions, despite their cultural differences, converge on this idea of connection to a higher power as a source of ultimate fulfillment.
Okay.
It's like there's this innate human need to feel connected to something greater than ourselves,
Yeah.
whether it's God, the universe, or some other form of higher consciousness.
Yeah.
And this connection can bring about a profound sense of belonging, purpose, and peace.
Yeah.
It's a kind of fulfillment that's not dependent on external achievements or possessions.
Right. It's not about what you've accomplished or what you own, but
Yeah.
about who you are and where you fit in the grand scheme of things.
Exactly. And it's a feeling that can be incredibly empowering and liberating.
Yeah.
It can give you a sense of strength and resilience to face life's challenges.
As we're talking, I'm reminded of a quote from the excerpt.
Okay.
It says, "Chasing the feeling internally taps into fundamental human needs."
I like that.
It really captures the essence of what we're talking about here, doesn't it?
It does.
It's like we're wired for this deeper connection, this inner fulfillment.
It does. It suggests that the pursuit of fulfillment isn't just about chasing fleeting pleasures or external validation.
Right.
It's about connecting with something deeper within ourselves.
Yeah.
Something that speaks to our core human needs and aspirations.
And maybe, just maybe, that's where we'll find the kind of lasting fulfillment that we're all searching for.
Right.
It's an exciting thought, but also a little daunting.
Yeah.
I mean, where do you even begin?
Right.
And are there any potential downsides to this whole inner peace thing?
Those are great questions. And the source material does acknowledge that these spiritual pursuits, while potentially transformative, aren't without their challenges.
Okay, so let's talk about the challenges.
Okay.
What are some of the obstacles people might encounter on this path to inner fulfillment?
Well, for one, the excerpt mentions that spiritual pursuits require patience and discipline,
Right.
qualities that can be hard to come by in our fast-paced world.
Yeah,
It's so easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle of everyday life
for sure.
and forget about nurturing our inner selves.
I definitely relate to that.
Yeah,
It's like I know I should meditate or spend time in nature,
right.
but then there's always something else that seems more urgent, more pressing.
Exactly.
How do you find that balance between, your inner life and your outer responsibilities?
It's a constant balancing act, and the excerpt doesn't offer any easy answers,
Right.
but it does emphasize the importance of balance and consistent reflection.
Okay.
It's about finding that middle ground between extremes. It's about being mindful of our attachments without trying to detach from everything completely.
Yeah.
It's about engaging in spiritual practices without neglecting our worldly responsibilities.
So it's not about escaping from the world, but about finding a way to live in it more consciously, more peacefully.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that both our inner and outer lives are important,
Yeah.
and that we can find fulfillment by nurturing both aspects of ourselves.
That makes sense. It's like we need to find that sweet spot where we can be engaged in the world without being completely consumed by it.
Right.
It's a challenge, but it sounds like a worthwhile one.
It is a challenge, but as you said, it's a worthwhile one.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the beautiful things about these spiritual traditions.
Yeah.
They offer us a framework for navigating life's complexities and finding true fulfillment. They remind us that we're not alone in this journey,
Right.
that there are ancient wisdom traditions that can guide us and support us along the way.
It's amazing how these teachings which were developed centuries ago,
I know.
are still so relevant to our lives today.
It's true.
It's like they've tapped into something timeless,
Yeah.
something that transcends cultural boundaries
Yeah.
and historical eras.
It is remarkable, and it makes you wonder what other gems of wisdom might be hidden within these traditions,
Right.
just waiting to be discovered and applied to our lives.
This has been such an inspiring conversation. I'm definitely feeling motivated to explore these ideas further and see how I can integrate them into my own life.
Yeah,
But we've covered so much ground already.
we have.
Is there anything else you want to highlight before we wrap up this part of our deep dive?
There's one more point from the excerpt that I think is worth emphasizing.
Okay.
It's the idea that this pursuit of inner peace and fulfillment isn't just about personal transformation.
Okay.
It also has implications for how we interact with the world around us.
That's a great point. So how does our inner state affect our outer world?
Well, remember how the excerpt highlighted the tension between internal and external reality?
Mm-hmm.
It suggests that the external world might be secondary to the internal, eternal truth of existence.
So if we're prioritizing our internal reality, our inner peace, does that mean we become less invested in the external world?
Right.
Do we become detached from what's happening around us?
That's a thought-provoking question, and I don't think there's a simple answer.
Right.
But perhaps it's not about detachment so much as a shift in focus. Maybe it's about recognizing that while the external world is important, our internal state of being is even more fundamental.
Okay.
It's like if we want to create a more peaceful and just world, we need to start by cultivating peace and justice within ourselves.
So it's not about ignoring the world's problems, but about approaching them from a place of inner peace and groundedness.
Exactly.
It's about being the change we want to see starting from within.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our actions, our words, our very presence
Yeah.
are all influenced by our internal state.
Okay.
And by cultivating inner peace, we can bring more harmony and positivity into the world.
That's a powerful message. It's like we have a responsibility to do our inner work, not just for ourselves, but for the betterment of the world.
Yes.
And on that note, I think we've reached the end of this part of our deep dive.
Okay.
But we're not done yet.
Right.
Join us next time as we explore how this shift in focus, this prioritizing of inner truth over external reality, can transform our daily lives and interactions.
I can't wait to delve into that with you. Until next time.
Welcome back to the deep dive. It's incredible how much we've uncovered about fulfillment already, from exploring transcendence and mystical experiences to, diving deep into the idea of detachment.
Yeah.
It's like we've been on this inner journey, peeling back the layers of what it truly means to live a fulfilling life.
It has been quite a journey, hasn't it? And I think one of the most powerful takeaways from our exploration is that true fulfillment comes from within. It's not about chasing external achievements or possessions,
Right.
but about cultivating a state of inner peace and connection. It's about recognizing that lasting joy and contentment, they come from a deeper place, a place that's not dependent on the ever-changing circumstances of the external world.
It's like we've been sold this idea that, happiness is something we need to chase, something we need to acquire.
Right.
But these spiritual traditions are saying, no. The real treasure is already within you.
Yeah.
You just need to learn how to access it.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's like we're on a quest for inner gold.
Oh,
And these practices we've been talking about, meditation, prayer, detachment, they're the tools that can help us unearth that treasure. They help us shift our focus inward, connect with something larger than ourselves,
Yeah.
and cultivate that sense of inner peace that's always been there, just waiting to be discovered.
I used to think that spirituality was all about, otherworldly experiences.
Right.
Something that was reserved for monks or mystics.
Yeah.
But what we've been discussing, it feels very grounded, very practical. It's like spirituality is about bringing that sense of peace and connection into our everyday lives.
I agree. And that brings us back to the question we ended with last time.
Okay.
If external reality is secondary to internal truth, how might that change the way we approach our daily lives and interactions?
Yeah.
It's a big question, one that challenges us to reevaluate how we see the world and our place in it.
When I first heard that idea, I thought, well, if the external world is secondary, does that mean I should just detach from everything?
Yeah.
Should they stop caring about what's happening around me?
Right.
But now I'm realizing that's not what it's about at all. It's not about detachment, but about a shift in perspective.
Precisely. It's not about ignoring the external world,
Okay.
but about approaching it from a different place,
Okay.
a place of inner peace and understanding.
Mhm.
It's about recognizing that everyone we encounter, even those who might seem difficult or challenging,
Right.
is on their own unique journey, and that their actions are often a reflection of their own internal state.
It's like, instead of judging people based on their outward behavior, we try to see the human being behind the actions,
Yes.
the inner world that's driving their choices.
Exactly. It's about approaching each interaction with compassion, empathy,
Yeah.
and a willingness to see beyond the surface.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that we're all interconnected, that we're all part of this larger web of life,
Right.
and that our actions have a ripple effect on the world around us.
This makes me think about how we react when things don't go our way.
Right.
It's so easy to get caught up in frustration and blame.
Yeah.
But if we can remember that everyone, including ourselves, is doing the best they can with the tools they have,
Right.
maybe we can respond with more patience and understanding.
It's a powerful shift in perspective, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about choosing compassion over judgment, understanding over blame.
Okay.
And it all starts with cultivating that inner peace and connection we've been talking about.
Right.
Because when we're grounded in our own truth, when we're connected to that deeper source of love and wisdom within, we're less likely to react from a place of fear or ego.
Yeah.
We're more likely to respond with kindness, even in challenging situations.
Yeah, it reminds me of something Gandhi said.
Oh, yeah.
Be the change you want to see in the world.
Right.
But instead of trying to change the world directly, we start by changing ourselves. We start by cultivating inner peace and letting that radiate outward.
Beautifully put. And who knows, maybe by shifting our own perspective, we can inspire others to do the same.
Right.
Maybe we can create a ripple effect of kindness and compassion that spreads throughout the world.
This has been such an enlightening conversation. It's like we've been given a new lens through which to view the world, one that's filled with possibility and hope.
It has been an incredible deep dive. And I think it all comes down to this.
Okay.
If external reality is secondary to internal truth, how might that change the way you approach your own chase for fulfillment? Are you chasing external achievements, or are you cultivating inner peace?
Right.
The answer, my friends, lies within.
What a powerful thought to leave our listeners with. This deep dive has given us so much to reflect on, and I hope it's inspired you to embark on your own journey of inner exploration.
Yeah.
Remember, true fulfillment is not something you find out there in the world. It's something you cultivate within yourself, moment by moment, choice by choice.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive on the